Okay, y'all, I'm sorry. I tried to push that all in one video, but it's too much. Now, the problem is that they lie so much. They lie so much that it's hard to just like jump into it. I have to like, for every one lie they tell, I have to tell 10 truths. So it's hard to just be like, oh, they said this is really what happened. It's like, no, we got to dig into that shit. But I'm going to try to jump right into it because this is part 7, but it's really 6.5 because it is really a continuance of the last one. So yeah, now we're in 1918. Now 1918 was the end of World War I and after the Great Migration. So a lot of white men had come home from the war and they seen a whole bunch of black thriving communities going on and they was upset about it pretty much. Now, the good thing about this though is that because of the war, a lot of black men were heavily prepared to fight, which caught them by surprise. Now this matters. This matters, y'all. Pay attention. So the white men felt ready to fight because they was like, yeah, we got military training. We can go and ramshack. The only thing was they forgot it went both ways. So while they was doing all this ramshackling, the black men was like, we're not waiting for anybody to come save us. We got our own military training. We gonna fight back. Now this was triggering to their white ancestors' core because the last time they had some heavily prepared military counterattacks, it looked something like the Maroon guerrilla warfare. It looked a lot like the Seminole Wars in which they was getting ass whooped in, but let's dive into it. So with this, you got to really pay attention to the words, y'all, because we got to stop letting them label this shit as riots. They try to label them as riots because when they're labeled as a riot, the people were not able to get like insurance backup. They were not able to get a lot of things. And it was just kind of marked as like a evil, like a mutual thing. When most of the time, this was white mobs and the military coming into attack. These are massacres, not riots. Stop calling them riots. White people riot. Rioting is white American culture. They riot after hockey games when they lose. They tear up towns for no reason. We defend ourselves. We get terrorized. That is not a riot, honey. It's a massacre. It's a war. So the return home from World War I in 1918 led to what we call the Red Summer of 1919, which is a bunch of events that hit about 25 major cities in the U.S., but it was way more than 25. It was just 25 major cities, but it was all across the U.S. where they just went in black neighborhoods and wreaked havoc. Now, this was an act of terrorism. This is not white mob. This is not a riot, y'all. This was an act of terrorism. They went through raping, beating, brutalizing, killing, war, straight up war. So Chicago was what they consider one of the biggest ones. It lasted about 7 fucking days, y'all. 7 days of us being terrorized and the police refusing to help. The military and all of them actually was like, it got nothing to do with us. So this started from a young black boy getting stoned and in the water, and he ended up drowning. And he got stoned by some other white kids because they started early. He ended up drowning, and so it went up from there. Now, because of this, they consider this like a revolt. I told y'all the ancestors be getting triggered, and they like, oh, hell no, we were supposed to have avoided this. And it ended up going back and forth. Now, the only thing that caught them off guard was that the black people were prepared because they had the military history now. So to the surprise, I think like 23 black people were killed, but 15 white people were killed. And so this kind of caught them off guard because they wasn't used to those numbers looking that close to each other, because the World War I veterans got together and defended their people very the outcome was good. But the bad part was that we did end up losing, a lot of black people ended up losing their houses and being displaced and pushed out of their cities. They burned down a whole bunch of thriving black businesses, homes, things of that sort. So it was a win for what they were trying to do as far as stealing our stuff and displacing us. But it was a big win for us because it was one of the first since the revolts and things that we actually fought back, and it was like kill or be killed. Now, the reason they start calling them riots is because they don't want to pay these people what they owe us. It ain't no statute of limitation on murder. A lot of these people's descendants need to be held accountable for this shit, but let's continue. Here's a picture just for context. As you can see, all ages, they didn't care, but this is them victoriously claiming our shit is their own. This is a house that they will now claim and pass down generation to generation and act like they worked hard for it and act like we don't work hard or pass down generational wealth when really this is the outcome after raping, murdering, and running us out of our own stuff with the help of the military. Yeah, this is just one picture. I'm showing you. This one I blurted out because it's a man who was no longer living, but just to show you the police taking pictures to show you that they were in on it. That nobody's making this up. They were proud of it, and they documented it to probably pass down to their children over Thanksgiving dinner. And just this picture, I like. They talk about triple waters and stuff, but I love this picture because it shows that's like the black World War I vets who was like, yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Now, yeah, like don't get around there victorious with the help of the military, but as you can see, 10 toes he stood. And they ain't tried. They needed help because 3-1 wasn't even good enough. All right, now let's get into Washington, D.C. Red Summer event. Now, this is the world famous one. A white woman claimed somebody touched her. Don't get me started. But yeah, the rumors had evolved that a white woman had got assaulted by a black man. This gave them reason to want to go into a black neighborhood and wreak havoc. When they first came through, raping, killing, stealing, doing what they do best. Hey, I'm just going off history. doing what they do. They ramshacked everything after the police refused to respond. And once the military joined in to help them, the black World War I veterans suited up, booted up, armed up, and defended their people in return. Again, this turned into a 4-day war. A combat, baby, that was supposed to be a massacre. It turned into a war. This is why they use words like riot. They use riots. See how they switch from massacre? They use massacre when they feel dominant. They use a riot because they don't want to say a war where they was getting their asses whooped. But anyway, this went on for 4 days. Because it was so close to the capital, they ended up sending in like 2,000 troops to try to de-escalate it, which time we know they did us wrong. But because of the World War I black veterans fighting back, even against the military, we came out in way better standing than they expected. And this is why I say we need military strategies. If you look at my other video, I went heavily into saying that, y'all, this is why it is important that we stop playing that guns are bad and not teaching our kids how to defend themselves. Because when it comes down to the come down, we're going to keep looking like how we looking right now, watching our kids get arrested for defending themselves, watching our kids get gunned down by store owners. Y'all, take it serious or it's going to take you, like, period. So now let's get into Elaine, Arkansas. Again, another reflection of our reality today. This was in 1919, y'all. So it was only a little over 100 years ago. I know we like to lose track of the timeline, but baby, that's not a long time ago. So Elaine, Arkansas, Red Summer looked a lot like it was black workers, sharecroppers had created a union. This pissed off them, like people, just our existence really pisses them off at this point. But this created them coming and finding a reason to come into our shit and fucking with us like they do so fucking well. It gets draining. They ended up killing about 200 black people during this massacre, not riot. They ended up killing about 200 people. There was some resistance, however. The thing that made this thing blow up is because they didn't arrest any of the white police, military, or regular civilians that came through wreaking havoc. Oh no, they let them go. Instead, they arrested 100 black men. They arrested 100 black men who had just got done bad, right? And then they took 12 and put them on trial. So if you look up the Elaine 12, I think they might have a movie about them. But they put them 12 black men on trial. They forced them to plead guilty. And then from that, it started a whole lot of, like, you know, movements and things from that. But it is just an unfortunate mirror of our reality today, right? We just watched that young man defend himself and then get life in prison. And so, my point in saying this is to say, while you're waiting on the justice system to do you right, I want you to understand it's doing what it was designed to do. It is not broken. It is not flawed. It is actually perfect because that's what it was made to do. So until we make our own parties and military force, stuff like that, we're going to be at the hands of what the system was designed to do. Now, the Red Summer has a plethora. It has a whole lot of events that happen, so I'm not going to go through them all. I just want to touch some key ones just so you could get a hit of what that looked like. Now, the reason they called it Red Summer, you can guess. It was bloody. It was bloody. They killed us by the hundreds, and we killed some in return, but this is war, y'all. The reason they don't tell these stories because just like if you look at my last videos, you would see that since the moment they got here until right now, it looks the exact same, which would prove that we are still in the middle of a war, which will also prove that we are the indigenous people they're still trying to get off the fucking land. Because you better believe, if they had somewhere to send us back to, they would have did it during these ice raids. They would have been did it, but there's nowhere to send us because we're already home. Now, before I jump into these next massacres, and that's the end. Part A gonna be the end of it all. But when I jump into these next massacres, I want you to remember these massacres because strategy. So I'm talking about this whole thing is about how they just do the same thing, they just switch it up a little bit. So strategy, and this is all leading to reclassification. So all of these massacres was to get us off of the land, get the indigenous people off of the land, steal the land so they can look like they were inherently rich and wealthy, steal it, displace us, and all of this stuff. And this is all going to lead up to the Reclassification Act, which kind of left us out there as nothing, as nobody, as black. And this is why we don't want that fucking word. But yeah, because of that military shit and those military responses from the World War I black veterans, the next massacres that start coming are going to look a little different because they learned from their mistakes, unlike us. I will give them that. They be learning. We be sitting around acting like we're really going to get justice and change, and they be planning their next attack. But stay tuned.